I think everyone who comes out here is going to say, wow. Hi, guys.
There's a bit of wow about it.
Yeah. This contract for the web, it's incredible to see you out here and putting this out here and asking for more. The idea that governments, companies, citizens will work towards a certain set of principles. I love the idealism, and I think it's an important time for that. So tell us, how do we hold tech companies, governments, how do we actually make sure this works? How do you hold people accountable?
Lots of different ways. I suppose if you're inside a tech company, we've seen recently, people inside tech companies have attitudes respected attitudes about what the company should do. So to a certain extent, you can make sure that the company you're doing from inside, you can make it do the right things. When you look at other companies, obviously from the outside, you can lobby. You can. There will be a phase of measurement. There will be a phase when we actually do look and see whether all the sides of this have actually been upheld. But also, I think to a certain extent, it's not just about enforcement. It's about a change of attitude. But just, for example, GDPR in Europe, it's just a regulation in Europe. But what I've seen is that all over the world, the whole conversation about privacy has changed because the conversation has changed by GDPR. And people, all the large companies, no matter which country they're in, are taking GDPR's attitude as their attitude. So I hope that effectively, companies and governments will take the for the web contract for the web attitude as their attitude.
This is a big question, but we have a big audience, so why not? What do you think, as a leader in the web, what do you think is the single most important ethical issue when it comes to the future of technology and its increasingly complicated intersection with humanity?
You know, I would have answered that question easily 10 years ago. I would have said, oh, well, keeping it free and open. The web shouldn't be controlled by anybody. But now, part of the contract for the web is, in a way, a bit of there's a coming of age here. There's a realizing that there are some simple issues we should fight for, like freedom, or free speech. But when you actually look at a lot of the issues in the contract, it's actually complicated. So if you want me to pick one and say, this is most important, that would mislead her. Everybody would rush off fighting for that, but then they would then realize the unintended consequences of pushing for anonymity and encryption. Actually, that's all very well. But when you push for anonymity, then what do you do with people who put hate speech online? Where do you draw the line? So it's like, I think there are 9 principles. I'm not going to pick and choose. But I don't want people out there to just pick one.
This idea of privacy is very interesting. I think we've seen in the last year a lot of things happen that make us question our right to privacy online. So I'm going to present 2 views to you and argue for one. I think I know which one you're going to argue for, but maybe we have reached this pivotal point that maybe we just need to re-envision our privacy because we've signed these social contracts when we logged on to this great service that you've created. Maybe at this point we should re-envision our privacy. Or privacy is a fundamental human right, and we must fight for it. So give me the argument.
For me, you guess which campaign I'm going to be in. Privacy is one of the fundamental rights, and we must fight for it. Not just because we're worried about pictures of ourselves being shown to the wrong people or becoming public, because it's all about being able to have to myself the things which I only share with myself, and most things I share with somebody or some people, but being able to actually share with whoever I want, anybody in your family, anybody I work with, people I meet, the power to be able to share anything with anything, to be able to do a deal if I want to with somebody to help me do my shopping, for example. So yeah, definitely I think privacy a fundamental right.
Have you seen these tech companies, especially companies like Facebook and Twitter, when it comes to this delicate line between free speech and censorship and them trying to tackle hate speech, have you seen a change of attitude inside these companies? As the kind of person who goes in and has the off-the-record, behind-closed-doors meetings, have they shifted their mentality over the last couple of years?
I think there are a lot of cases, there are some cases, as I say, there are some things which are just simple issues and some which are complex ones, and the limits of free speech are a complex one. In general, I feel what we need to do about that as a community, sometimes as a local community, you might want to, in Lisbon, might want to have discussions about what do people in Lisbon feel are the limits of free speech. But then globally, we need global discussions. It's difficult because different people have different opinions. If you're building a huge software platform, or you're building a little software platform which may become huge later, you need to think about what are the implications. But every line of code you write has this got an implication for free speech. What happens if somebody drags this here and drops this here? Then is that going? No. How is it going to affect people's rights? How is the system, when people take their attitudes about free speech, for example, that they were taught and they learned in kindergarten, what happens when they come to my platform? How does that apply? Will I need new concepts of free speech? Will I need new concepts of privacy on the platform?
Great. Well, we actually have a great group of supporters who have signed the contract. So I want to bring them out and have them explain why. So you guys come on out. Great. Let's give him a hand.
Conga line.
It's not a Beyonce concert, I promise. This is Web Summit, guys. Great. Michael, let's start with you. You are the COO of Anchor Free. You can explain a little bit about that. Having spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley, I know there are a lot of these dinner table conversations with folks talking about how do we fix things.
Yep.
How do you think this contract can actually help?
Yeah, so I'll introduce Anchor Free real quick. So we build technology to make the internet more private, more secure, more open. So we fight internet censorship. People can get our app directly, or we have an SDK that they use. And so we've distributed that out to about 700 million devices so far. But it's really important that we all kind of participate in protecting the internet. I was in New York years ago, and this is the reason why I joined Anchor Free. I was in New York when SOPA and PIPA were coming out, and some great leaders in the New York tech community, including Alexis Ohanian and Aaron Swartz and others, kind of rallied us all, and then eventually kind of everybody to fight those laws and protect the internet and allow it to kind of grow and prosper. What that told all of us at that point is actually that is all of our responsibility. I had just left a dating site. Everybody was building their own apps. Some of us had 2 people on our team. Some of us had thousands. And we understood that it was all of our responsibility, and we needed to come forward. And what Tim is doing is fantastic, because this is a call out now to everybody that this is individuals, companies, governments to come forward and decide how we want the internet to be.
I mean, it's kind of interesting, your specific standpoint at the kind of tech leader you are and the service you have. I'm assuming you have to make some complicated decisions as to who is allowed to use the service, who's not, and where is that fine line between free speech and censorship. So as a tech leader, how are you grappling with these increasingly murky waters? Yeah.
Well, I think, as our consumer apps are consumer VPNs, and obviously that's, you deal with a lot of gray area. And I think as humans, we're very bad at dealing with gray questions. We love black and white. We love kind of, overt answers to things. All of these things need each of us to come to the table. What we'll try to do with this contract for the web, because there's questions of, if you're a government, okay, you want stability and control, but is censorship of the internet okay? And then where in the middle, should we place, what we do? If you're a company, is it okay to say, okay, well that country says that we need to do it this way, so we're going to do it this way? Where do these, kind of gray areas? We need to sit down and kind of engage with each other and decide where they lie. So I'm looking forward to doing that through the process of the contract for the web.
Or you could just take his phone number and call him up anytime things get really complicated. Neelam, I know this is really personal to you. You are on the stage. I think you are the person who's never lived in the world without the web, I think. I'm sorry if anyone else.
Safe to say.
Everyone else seems young too, but you're very young. You're a rising digital activist, so why is this contract personal to you?
Sure, thanks, Laurie. My name's Neelam, and I'm on stage today thanks to the New Now, who support rising
passionate activists such as myself to make sure that our voices are included in decisions which impact our future. And I think to answer your question, Laurie, I haven't seen a world really in my adult life so far without the web and the power of digital. And I think that's so ingrained in the way that I live my life and in the way that I do activism. And I think I might have taken that for granted in the sense that I have access to education, I have access to economic opportunity, healthcare, and there are people all around the world, in particular girls and women, who don't have access to these things. But I think what's most important is this access to this sense of community, with which otherwise I wouldn't have been able to start up my own platform which brings social activists together. And I think it's super important. Somebody put it quite nicely to say it's the lottery of life, but it shouldn't be the lottery of life. And I think that's why the new now stands for the new contract for the web.
Great. And yeah, we could clap for it. You guys clap. Jacqueline, you're a VP at Google, the president of Google.org. It's good to see a big tech company show up, come on stage, and kind of talk about some of these things, especially at this time. What was the thinking in having Google sign on?
Well, this is an incredible moment for the world. This 50-50 moment, it's a huge milestone, and it's a great opportunity for us to really double down and bring access to everyone, especially, as Neelam was saying, women and girls who are much less likely to have access. And we know with the vast scale of the web that brings huge benefits as well as challenges. And as Google, we really think the best way to deal with these challenges is to come together collectively and work collaboratively. So that's why we're here at the table. We're working alongside government, civic society leaders, other companies, academics, web users. We all need to come together. And that's why Google is supporting the Web Foundation, and why we're also very supportive of this new contract. And we think everyone can really get behind these principles and really rally together to protect the free and open web.
It's an important time for Google, too. Just last week, you had employees all around the world walking out of the office and protesting for better conditions for women in the workplace. You know, this was an international story, and I personally had friends walking out who felt frustration. So you are a female leader at Google. What has to change?
Well, I participated in the walkouts, and I think it was a good moment for us to come together as a company. And I think what we heard as leaders from our women and from allies as well is that we need to do a better job of creating a really safe and inclusive workplace, and we're really committed to doing that.
What's your message to women out here who are...
Women! We need more women in tech. So proud of all the women who are already out there. And I heard the number of how many entrepreneurs we have in particular and women in technology. And we can do this together.
Great. Munir, you are the Minister for Digital in France. That's a fancy title. Explain that. And France is also the first country to sign the contract. So explain the thinking behind it.
Yes, tonight I'm very proud to announce that on behalf of President Emmanuel Macron and our whole government, France is the first country to sign this contract for the web. It all comes with everything we believe in. In Europe, we have a strong belief that there should only be an internet that serves the people and serves the planet. That technology should always serve the humans and not the contrary. And we are fighting for that. We are united. You are uniting for that. And today is the right time, because after 30 years, because after all the development and the transformation of the web, at this age of maturity comes the age of responsibility. And we believe that if we want to avoid the wild west of the web, if we want to avoid a web where our mothers, fathers, and kids to come, and SMEs and startups should really build their own digital path, should really decide what they want for themselves on the web, we need to avoid the abuse. And when I talk about the abuse, we know them, we see them every day. Personal data that are abused every day, speech, online hate speech that becomes the norm, unfair business practices that are everywhere and that are completely helpful to our SMEs. For all these reasons, we were very passionate to sign this contract. But this contract is only the beginning. So we need to work all together. And thank you again, Tim.
Thank you. I want to end with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim, I want to end with you, and I know we got to wrap. I had a moment a couple weeks ago at CNN in New York. We had an explosive device that was sent to our building. And I remember as we were sitting out there thinking, because a lot of the hate speech was there before, and there were actual threats that emerged offline, and I remember thinking, I feel like we've reached this point where a lot of these clicks and swipes are turning into police sirens. And it certainly felt like an important moment to look at. So because I got you here, because you created the World Wide Web, tell us all, do you think it's going to be okay? I don't need a hug. I'm okay. I'm all right, guys.
It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Why is it going to be okay?
It's going to be okay because these people are going to step back and they're going to put aside all the myths that they're currently taking as being just part of the physics of the way things work. Right? The physics is about an apple drops to a floor, the apples will keep dropping to the floor. People do not only have to be motivated. The systems that people use don't have to be free. They don't have to be the ad-based funding model doesn't have to work in the same way. It doesn't have to create clickbait. It doesn't have to be the only reason that you get a programming job in order to distract your user from doing what they're trying to do. I think we're looking for a revolution. Yeah, the contract for the web is a bit revolutionary because it says it's about going back to values, and behind that, I think there's a bit of a part of the revolution is about people like you, people who are actually building the web, are taking things into their own hands and saying, I actually want to work on a project where I am acting as the user's agent. I'm going to write code which works for the user, which isn't trying to distract the user. I'm going to write code so that when the user uses their app, there at every point, I try to make the app doing what I would want it to do if I was the user. There's that concept of the technology working for the user, and if you're worried about, if people say there'll never be a funding model for it, just do it anyway. What we used to do in the early days, of before the dot-com bust, people used to just do it and worry about the funding model afterwards. We need a bit more of that. Because if enough people, if you generate value, if you serve the user, you are generating so much value, and it is value that your users won't be accustomed to. A pleasant experience reading your articles without being distracted, people won't be accustomed to. They may be shocked. They will realize that you've given them a lot of value, and somehow you and your users and the people you work with will get to a better place by throwing away the myths of the previous years. Thanks.
Tim Berners-Lee, thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Have a great night. Thanks. Okay.